mchaji nani, aliyevuta ama wote, kiasi gani, au hautaki kuwachaji kabisa mwanzo, unabidi uwachaji hela kubwa ili kutokea mazingira kama hayo unakuwa umeshajitoa kabisa hapo mwanzo wa mkataba.
Good afternoon, Council. Kwa majina naitwa Rose Maja. Nimepewa nafasi ya kuuliza swali langu sababu alikujibiwa mwanzo na wateja.
Asante Mheshimiwa Makamu, umetenda haki, maswali yamekuwa ya kutosha. Na labda mimi ni share tu kidogo alafu sina kwa sababu anajibu. Inawezekana na mimi nikapata kitu kingine tena. Hili somo tuliamua tuwe nalo kutokana na mitizamo kinzani iliyopo kwenye swala la charging. Na kubwa zaidi ni kwa nini vijana wengi tuna charge less. Bahati nzuri sababu zimetolewa huko. Kwanza kuna huo muingiliano wa madalali, kwa sababu mtu ananunua nyumba, dalali tayari ameshapiga asilimia yake pale. Kwa wanapokuja kwako kwa ajili ya mkataba, wanakuambia tayari tumesha spend hela nyingine huko kwa dalali. Wakisahau kwamba kazi ya dalali kama alivyo framework, wewe ndio unafanya transaction yao iwe halali. Lakini kwa nini tunatofautiana kwenye charging hata wenyewe kwa wenyewe? Ndugu yangu pale alisemea ni background zetu zinatofautiana. Mwingine anatanguliza ile ambayo yeye ameiita ni njaa na mahitaji yake ya wakati huo ndio yanayomuongoza kwenye charging. Kwamba kama leo ni tarehe 28 na kodi yangu inaisha tarehe 30, dili lolote litakalokuja katikati hapa, I don't have time to compromise. Nitalichukua no matter what, kwa sababu tarehe 30 tayari ameanza kupokea message za nani? Za mwenye nyumba. Hao tunakaribia kwenye renew practicing certificate. Anaona mtu anataka agongewe muhuri kwa 3000. Anagonga, anachukua ile 3000. Anajua kabisa anachofanya si sawa, lakini anaongozwa na ile circumstance aliyopo kwa wakati huo. Ndio maana tukakubaliana ili tuweze kukabiliana na haya, tufundishwe charging, tufundishwe ethics, lakini ya yote tupambane na economic empowerment. Uchumi wako ukikaa standard, inakuguide hata kwenye namna ya kufanya nini, ya kuweza kucharge. Lakini shida ya charging inakuwa kama ugonjwa. If you start very low, possibly you will end low. Tunao mawakili ni masenior, lakini anapochaji hata junior ana afadhali. Ni kwa sababu alianza practice yake akiwa vile low. Kwa hiyo hata nature wateja wake ni wale wanaoenda kwenye ule mfumo wa chini. Anasema kesi hii tumtafute wakili fulani, haitazidi 300,000. Wakili anakuja na mteja anakuja na bei yake. Unaona? Kwa hiyo namna tunavyoanza inamata sana. Lakini namna ya kupambana na madalali, nafikiri tumepokea suggestions nyingi kwa vipindi tofauti. Wengine wakiona kwamba ni vizuri sasa tuwasiliane na mamlaka ya mapato TRA, kwamba kuna nini ile fee ya wakili imelipwa subject to ile receipt, ambayo pia ikirudi kwa mawakili vijana tunapenda transaction nyingi zisizo na receipt. Lakini tukikubaliana kwamba kama ni 15% wakili kwenye transaction, hakuna namna mteja atanegotiate hilo, kwa sababu ukichaji less transaction yake ikienda TRA itafanya nini? Itagoma. Kwa hiyo utakuta sheria imeshazungumza kwa niaba ya nani? Ya wakili. And you don't need to negotiate that. Tunarudi kwa upande wetu, tuko tayari kwenda kwenye huo mfumo wa kila transaction ipite kwenye receipt. Kwa hiyo tukiwa ready kwenye hilo na remuneration order zimepanda, zina reflect uhalisia wa soko, tutakuwa na ujeuri wa confront TRA ili transaction zote, ili mchakato wake ukamilike TRA, lazima zionekane ile percentage ya wakili tayari ililipo na ushahidi wa malipo uko pale. Tutakuwa tumewadefeat madalali. Na kwa kweli madalali wametuzidi kwenye umoja. Kila Arusha madalali wana mfumo huo, ukija Dar es Salaam, ukija wapi, wakati hawana chama cha madalali Tanzania. Na ameandaa structure yake kwenye kila affidavit moja percent hii, mtu wa NIDA percent hii, hawa vishoka wake wanne. Sasa hata sisi wenyewe kwa wenyewe tunatengenezeana ugumu, na hii ipo kwenye ofisi nyingi sana za NIDA, na matendo haya yanafanya na mawakili wenyewe. Kwa hiyo dawa ya kwanza kwenye kuleta equality kwenye charging ni sisi mawakili wenyewe. Asante.
Nashukuru sana kwa maswali yenu. Na nadhani nianze na lile ambalo kila wakati nilikuwa nasema nitakuja kuzungumza. Kilichopo ni kwamba nina slides kama 36. Where I was trying to minimize ili vitu vingine nisiwaboe. Lakini mkiwa navyo, kwa sababu mtakuwa na hii paper, mtaviona. Invoice. Na nimeandika kwa kirefu kidogo. Kwa kuandika invoice kwa mfano, kuna case. Criminal case number 2 ya 2022. Unaandika legal fees for criminal case number 2 ya 2022 $1,500,000. It does give you a lot of information and sense. Katika hali ya kawaida, mtu wa kawaida haioni kwamba ukisite hiyo kesi hapo tayari milioni ngapi, hiyo fee haingi. Sasa what do we normally do? Kuandika paragraph 15. Tulikuwa tunaenda kwa na affidavit ya paragraph 76. Weka annexures ambayo akipelekea mteja affidavit, assign affidavit, alafu anasema $20,000. Katika akili yako ya kawaida unakubaliana nayo straight away. Kuliko ka affidavit ka page moja alafu anasema $20,000. It's a business technique ambayo in a way mimi nilitoa hicho kitu, the good aspect of it. Kwa sababu nilikuwa nakumbana na ubishi mkubwa wa fees kwa wateja wangu. And then lazima ujue market inataka nini. At the end of the day, sio wewe unayejilipa. Ni lazima umridhishe yule anayekulipa. Sasa there is a civil case number so there are some applications, there is what not. Zijaze kwenye ile invoice writing. If you get an opportunity, ukija naweza nikakupa a practical case kwamba hii ni invoice ambayo ina attract this amount. Whereas I would have written only a sentence. Lakini ukiandika ndio ule mfano niliokupa wa ile mail. Yule aliyesema tapping ni $2. Knowing where to tap. Kwa hiyo katika maana ya invoice writing ni communication kati yako wewe na huyo mteja. Ni lazima umpe lugha ambayo yeye ataielewa. Usiargue naye. Ndio wale ambao tulikuwa tunazungumza mawakili wengine, anaanza kugombana na hakimu au jaji on the first day, and then you expect to get a desired result. It's difficult. Kwa hiyo ni lazima pia uwe humble. There are issues of humbleness, nimeziacha lakini zipo kwenye nani unaziona. La mwanangu Rose, sio dadangu, whichever is applicable, na dadangu mwanangu kutoka kwenye kona pale. Where ukifungua duka au kioski cha kuuza nyanya, vitunguu, hujui mteja atakayekuja. Lakini kuna group ambayo umeitarget in your mind. Vitu vingi vinadetermine, sio kitu kimoja. One, kwa mfano wewe unaweza unafanya kazi kwenye firm yangu mimi. Wale wateja ambao hawaoni haja ya kunibother, wewe ambaye most of the time wataka mention, atataka twende wote. Nikienda kwa mteja atataka twende wote na kadhalika. She was so eager to learn. Matokeo yake amelearn so quickly, na sasa hivi na yeye amefungua practice yake, ana wateja wa kutosha. Kila nikimtazama naona ana wateja wa kutosha. Na mimi sioni kama ni competitor wangu, sababu wale sio wateja wa kwangu mimi. Wale wateja ambao ordinarily mimi nisingefanya nao, lakini wale niliokuwa namwambia bwana, hebu nendeni kwa fulani atafanya. Na bahati nzuri akawa anafanya vizuri sana. Hebu nendeni kwa fulani. Sasa hivi ana practice yake na she is doing very well. I'm proud of her na wengine wengi ambao wametoka katika namna hiyo. Sasa wateja unawapata wapi? Pia ni swala la conduct yako. Unaweza ukaenda kwenye law firm fulani ambayo pengine mna mahusiano na hang around na members wa law firm. Mimi pale kwangu wanaona vijana wangu wanavyoniletea watu wengi, wengine hata si wajui. Lakini wakifanya kazi zao huko, wanafanya kazi vizuri na wateja wanawajua, na mwishoni kama recently kuna mteja mmoja, a big company from Rwanda, big company, walianza hao vijana kuwa wateja wao, ndo nilipofika pa kufika penyewe wakaja wakalileta, na mimi nikaona hili linafanana na mimi, kwa hiyo nikaenda nalo, lakini lilianza na wao. What do I want to say, or what am I saying? Ninachosema hapa ni kwamba hata wewe unaweza kuniletea mteja, mimi naweza nikakuletea mteja. Wamarekani wanasema katika same professional you do what is called competition. You compete and then you cooperate at the same time. Nikiwa na mteja ambaye mimi naona huyu haendana na mimi, nasema bwana, kuna bwana mmoja anazifanya kazi hizi vizuri sana, hebu nimpigie simu. Ndivyo unavyopata wateja, na namna nyingine nyingi. Kwenye dunia ya kwanza ndo haya ndio wanasema, nitasema baadaye, ninayo mengi sana. Kwenye dunia ya kwanza watu wanakuwa members wa clubs mbalimbali, societies mbalimbali. Kutokana na mchango wako kwenye ile society wanasema, huyu bwana he speaks law all the time, he seems to be a very good lawyer. Ndivyo utakapopata wateja, kujiinvolve katika vitu mbalimbali. Siku haitoshi na muda hautoshi, lakini the fact kwamba tunafahamiana. Wakati mwingine you can stop me kwenye court corridors ukaniuliza kitu while waiting kwenda kwa judge, I will tell you. Na kuja niende very quickly. Angelina, where to get client, that one I have already addressed it. Nadhani nimekutosheleza. Songoro, njaya ya nani, wateja tunawapata wapi na madalali, ili nitalijibu kwa pamoja. Uwezi ukapata au ukachukua wateja wote dunia hii. Tunagawana, hii keki ni kubwa mno. Tunagawana. Mimi nilijifunza wakati nafanya kesi za watu wa migodini. Ukifika pale, concentration ya watu wengi migodini wanadhani ni ile almasi au dhahabu. Lakini kuna service providers wengine wanaotengeneza hela nzuri. Caterers, wale wanao supply chakula. They have got good money. Legal services providers, na wenyewe wanakula hela yao. Wafanya usafi na wenyewe wanakula hela yao. Kwa hiyo huwezi ukachukua wateja wote. Ukiwa na wateja kadhaa wanakutosha, wa manage hao, fanya good delivery ya services. Kwa hiyo wakati mwingine usiseme ataka hela kadogo unachukua. Vitu vingine just let it go. Ufanye kile unachokiweza kwa price unayodhani wewe kwamba inakulipa business wise. Kwa sababu at the end of the day, kama alivyokuwa anasema mwenyekiti hapa, kiongozi wetu, kwamba utatakiwa kulipa kodi, utatakiwa kulipa wafanyakazi, utatakiwa kulipia a lot of things, na wewe mwenyewe kula. Alfred anazungumzia reference pia na madalali na cost of charging, price hatuweke. Zamani kulikuwa kuna tume inaitwa tume ya bei, inapanga bei zote hapa, lakini kuna scenarios ambazo hata order ile advocacy remuneration order hai provide na haija envisage. Source ya charging unaangalia kwenye practice ya common law, kwamba katika nchi nyingine charging ikoje, particularly hizi issues ambazo ni mpya na zinatoka na wateja kutoka nchi. Ni lazima ujue kule alikotoka huyo mteja practice yao ikoje. There's a lot of work you have to do ili kuweza meet expectations za mteja. Sio kwamba mkionana tunasema 5,000. Na kitu kingine ambacho nataka kuzungumza ni kwamba usikubali kuwa cheap kwa maana zifuatazo. Moja, usipokee instruction bar. Usipokee instruction barabarani. Akikuambia mtu au jamaa yako au afisa fulani wa kampuni kwamba bwana kuna swala hili na hili, na anambia drop me an email and then I will give you an advice. Your advice inakwenda na fee note. Akwambia come to my office and we discuss that. Nitakusaidia vizuri zaidi. Na usikubali kutoa opinion off cuff. Wewe utoe a detailed opinion ambayo umeconsult. Na kuna aina za kuandika opinion. There are templates, proper, statutes referred, cases referred. Kila opinion lazima iwe na constitution, reference to constitution. Why? Kwa sababu sheria zote za emanate from the constitution. Kwa hiyo unaiandika a proper opinion, anakuona kwamba kazi yako unaifahamu. Asikusimamishi hapo alafu anakuuliza hii ni hivi na hivi, unasemaje? Utakuja kujimisdirect na itaonekana kwamba kumbe understanding yako ya sheria ndio hiyo. Usitoe opinion ya sheria ovyo ovyo. There are a lot of things which you have to consider kabla hujafika kwenye hiyo conclusion na utakusema. Usiende haraka haraka namna hiyo. Nyingine kasonda criminal kwamba kama order haijazungumza kwa mfano kwenye jinai, you resort to common law. Tanganyika order in council 26 of July 1920 inakwambia pale ambapo sheria hapa haiko, kuna tabu hiyo, you go back to common law, unaenda kwenye hiyo practice, unapata hiyo shield. Nyingine nani wa kuchaji? Dada aliuliza hapa. Ndio haya tunayosema. Mimi hili sijibu hapa. Hii ni legal issue. Na akikuuliza mtu kwamba katika mazingira haya anafanya nini, lakini of course ukiwa wakili mwenzio mnajadiliana pale. Ila mteja usimpe jibu ambalo ni la barabarani. Wewe sio mtu wa barabarani, wewe ni advocate, a noble profession. Akikutaka umpe ushauri on a legal matter, ni lazima umpe a detailed one which goes with fees. Na watania watu huko sisi ambapo huwa tuna socialize for a glass of wine. Kuna tendency watu wanauliza hii kisheria mnaionaje? I always tell them, I'm earning my living out of advising people on those things. And here you want me to give you for free. Nitakufa na njaa. Mimi ndo naishi kwa kuwashauri watu exactly hicho unachoniambia. Kwa hiyo if you are real serious on it, niletee email, alafu mimi nitakufanyia research and I will be paid for the research. Rose jibu na what else? Kingine tu cha kuwaongezea kwamba wateja wanakutazamia wewe uwe wa kiwango fulani. Na muda wote wana a lot of testing kwamba hii inakwendaje, hii inakwendaje, hii inakwendaje. Lakini muhimu kuliko vyote ambavyo wala msiignore is networking. Networking ndio the major source ya wewe kupata wateja. Hakuna mtu atakayejua kwamba wewe ni lawyer mzuri bila kufahamu. A week ago mimi nilikuwa kwenye mitandao mingi katika jitihada za kutetea maslahi ya mteja wangu. Advertisement zinakatazwa, lakini in a way ni advertisement kwa sababu ni issue ambayo ni hot. Hata usipotaka kuitazama utaitazama tu, and then you do your best. Siku nyingine mtu mwingine akiwa na issue inayofanana na ile anasema yupo bwana mmoja ambaye amewahi kufanya mambo haya. Lakini nikiwaibia siri moja kwamba wateja walivyo, kama unamfanyia mteja kazi nzuri sana, anaona raha kukulipa zaidi kuliko kulipa kidogo. Kama unataka kunilipa mimi peanut, I thought nimekuja kufanya a serious business kwa ajili ya mtu serious, mtakayemlipa serious. Umeona? Kwa hiyo tukiendelea kubishana, maana yake he was almost insulting us kwamba why are you cheap? Jamani, thank you so much.
Labda tujinyooshe kidogo kama tumechoka, alafu tumkaribishe Sabrina kwa ajili ya presentation nyingine. Tusimame kidogo. Tusimame kidogo. Court of Appeal.
Sawa, basi fanya hivi, au twende hivi, au twende hivi. tutanue miguu, tushike kiuno. Sasa tunafanya mazoezi. Mmenipa na jukumu kufanyisha. Mnafanya mazoezi ili muwe active. Sasa tutanue miguu au tushike kiuno. Mnakuwa mnazungusha kiuno. Nataka mzee wa Sunda. Tunaendelea baada ya presentation. Tuanze moja, mbili. Watu wanategea, msikatike lakini tukae basi. Katibu endelea.
Tunamshukuru sana Senior Counsel Alex Mgongolo kwa presentation nzuri. Presenter anayefuata ni Advocate Sabrina ambaye anaenda kutupitisha kwenye aspect moja nzuri inaitwa business development aspect in the legal profession. Sasa huyu ndo anaenda kutuelezea masuala kama kwamba how do we get clients, what should we do in order to attract clients and so many other things ambazo zipo kwenye business development.
Thank you. So we met yesterday. I hope today you're more responsive. I want responses from the audience. Before I start on business development, just to pick up on this young lady's question here about a more detailed bill. So this is an example of a real bill that's been anonymized. So all of the big law firms tend to always keep all their lawyers every day have to record their time, even if it's not on a client matter. So if you do business development or you do knowledge, you record your time every day. So this is an example. This is not a real example, but this is every day in March. This is my first client. Every day I record on the sale of Exco, client name, how much time did I spend? I spent 5.5 hours. 0.1 is 6 minutes, because an hour divided by 10 is 6 minutes. So I spent 5 hours, 6 minutes, or 5.5, I spent 5 hours, 30 minutes on this. And law firms also have activity codes, because the client wants to know, in the instructions, what are you doing? So if I was doing due diligence, I'd write due diligence, and then I write down exactly what I did in the day. I'm noting it as I go along, and then at the end of the day, I change that into a proper narrative. So I'd say I had a call with Shushila and Martin about releases. I sent an email on this, and I had a call with John Smith at 18:30. And then in the same day, I do knowledge for 30 minutes. I'd write it down. I'd write down what I did in knowledge. So what happens is these big law firms, they have software that does this, but smaller law firms do it manually. At the end of a matter for a client, charging hourly rates, you end up with this. So on the date, 1st of November, Alicia Keys, who's a lawyer, is a senior associate. She received the final scope, review, emails, deal with spectrum sharing, and send various emails. She did that for 0.2 hours. Her hourly rate is $115 an hour, so the amount is $23. And this is what clients expect to see. So for example, all law firms have hourly rates. The biggest firms in Tanzania have some very expensive rates. One firm has a rate where a partner is $700 an hour, but that's an English firm that came here. But normally, for a smaller firm, you'd look at about $200, $250 an hour for a partner, and you work backwards. So this is what you expect to see on a bill. So I can send this example as well if you think it'll be useful. But now, we're going to try and win the clients. So we're going to talk about business development. Okay? So we're going to cover what is business development and why do you need it? Steps that you can take to improve your business development in general. And then I'm going to do a whole section on bidding for panels and projects. The reason I'm doing that is it's a big audience to cater to today. Some of you will be in law firms, some of you will be sole practitioners. The bigger law firms tend to want the bigger ticket work. And they get big ticket work from going on the panel of banks and insurance companies. Because banks and insurance companies will only use law firms on their panels. And also the government sometimes have panels in parastatals. But also you get these things called requests for proposals for projects. So if there's a big project in Tanzania, for example, EACOP
EACOP will publish in the newspapers a request for a proposal. And the bigger firms want to win those requests, but even you can win them. So I'm going to show you how today. So the first question is, what is business development? It's pretty obvious. Business development is obtaining clients and obtaining legal work instructions from your client and maintaining the same. There's also an official definition of business development, which is, it is a set of tasks and processes, or that's better, meant to develop and implement growth opportunities within and between organizations, and to do so in a sustainable and profitable way. So we're developing business. You need business, why? Why do you want business development? Because as we've just heard from our colleague, law firms are businesses, but also there are other reasons why you might want to do business development in terms of your aim. So if you're not on the profiteering side, if your aim is to help in society, you might want to do business development with NGOs, etc. So do law firms take business development seriously? Absolutely. If you go and work in any of the big firms, you will be appraised in appraisals. And those appraisals will look at four pillars. Those 4 pillars are: number 1, knowledge. Are you getting it? Are you disseminating it? Number 2, your financial performance. Are you making money for the firm? Are you billing? Number 3, your teamwork and soft skills. And number 4, your business development. And if you want to move from being an associate to becoming a partner, you really need to be key on business development, because if you can't bring in clients, you will never make it as a partner in a firm, in a big firm. And all the big firms normally have professional business development teams. Today we're saying we don't have them, so we're going to work out how do we win our business. This is a quote from CBA.org. It's talking really about US firms, but US law firms. They did a survey and they found out for a US firm, if you spend 1 hour per week on business development only activities, it results in an additional $30,000 in origination revenue. Origination means bringing in work. 1 hour equals $30,000 in the States. This really pays off. But I'll teach you from the smaller side, if you're a sole practitioner or in a small firm, how you develop your business. And I'm looking really now at sole practitioners in a way, or people starting out, because I know you're starting out in your career. So the first thing you need to ask yourself before you develop business is, who is your target? Who are you trying to bring in as your client? And that then also feeds into what kind of firm are you? If I'm starting today and I have no experience, I'm not going to bring EACOP, the pipeline from Uganda, in as a client, right? So who's my target client and how do I move that across? So there are lots of different categories. You could be a high street firm or a kiosk where you have walk-in clients. You could be looking at private clients who normally want wills and trusts. You could be looking on the criminal side, maybe business clients. But then if you're looking at business clients, is there a particular industry? We talked about specialization yesterday. And you have to remember, for business clients, they bring them in on the investment and then they serve them for their time on the project that they're working on. So when you're looking at business clients, you need to empathize with what they know and try and talk their talk. So understanding how business speaks is really important, which you can gain from various websites, which I can give to you. Remember also, when looking at clients, there are some clients you may not want. Okay, so I'm an Indian. Some people say Indians don't pay. I don't know if that's true. Is that true? Anyone? No one's admitting to it. But they dance well. But there are certain categories of clients you need to think about whether or not your client is actually going to pay you and pay you for the work you've done. And maybe, if you can choose, you don't go for a client that's not going to pay. And another category of clients is international law firms. So these are law firms internationally who work across Africa doing lots of transactions. They get the mega projects, talking about projects of over $1 billion or multi-million dollars, and they will always need local counsel in the countries that they are doing the projects in. So for example, if, let's say if Airtel was doing something in India, Airtel's Indian-based, they were listing in India, then they would need counsel in every single country where they have subsidiaries to deal with the listing, right? So they would hire maybe an English law firm or an American law firm, and those lawyers, which are called international law firms, would want Tanzanian counsel to assist. And there's normally very good money in doing that kind of work. So you want to get to know those international law firms as well. So once you know which market you're aiming at, you do market research on how to get them. And then you tailor your business development and your marketing to that targeted client. And as you grow, so maybe you start small with local business, but as you build your CV and you grow, you can go higher if the thing you're looking for is to get the big ticket work, the work that pays a lot. So the first thing in business development is to have and build your brand. Does anybody recognize this? What is it? Apple is what? Apple is iPhone. What else is Apple? iPad. Okay. When you look at this Apple, what does it make you think? It makes you think of quality, expensive, cutting edge. This is a brilliant logo by Steve Jobs. Apple has a brand. If Apple comes up with something crap tomorrow, people will still buy it because Apple has a brand. But it won't sustain its brand for long if it comes up with something crap. You all have a brand. I've been watching you. I don't know if you noticed, I've been watching you through these presentations. And I've been thinking, if I'm a client, who am I going to hire? I'm going to hire these two, sitting right in front of me here. You know why? They're dressed very smartly. The whole time they're paying attention. There's a man and a woman, which is gender equality. And they've been writing. I'm also going to hire this table here. I like the laptop. I like this guy as well. I was watching him, he's been paying attention the whole time. I think you are very non-risk adverse, this gentleman here who's asking the questions. So if I want someone who's really going to tear apart the other side, I might hire you. But I want to make sure you don't argue with me as the client. So you all have a brand, and everywhere you go, you are perpetrating your brand. So we're going to talk about developing your brand. So firstly, number one, what name do you pick for your firm, for your brand? I think, honestly, the tradition of law firms before, from the UK, it came from the UK, it went into Kenya, Tanzania, and lots of countries. In Kenya, you cannot have a law firm that does not have the name of its partners. Yeah? And that comes from partnership law, that the firm should have the name of its partners. So the firms, for example, Clyde & Co, you heard from Maggie yesterday. Clyde & Co is an English firm. The first partner was called Clyde. It would have been called Clyde Montgomery John Smith, and then cut its name down now, because now you don't need the names. If you use a name firm in Tanzania, so if I decided to start Sabrina & Co, right, is that a firm or is that Sabrina's family business? What do you think? Will you come to Sabrina & Co? Or will you come to Assay Legal? What do you think? Assay, yeah? You want to have an institutional brand. The reason why, also, is because, although clients get very attached to their lawyers, if Sabrina goes under a bus tomorrow and dies, Sabrina & Co is finished. And nobody else feels ownership. So make an institution. Give yourself a generic name if you can, not just your name. So, and the American law firms, they will use their names, but I'm not suggesting that. So, it's useful to use & co. & co means & company. But it's better to say advocates. If you say Assay and Associates, it means there's one guy and associates. Right? It comes from being a sole practitioner with associates. But you want to be one team. So maybe Assay Advocates or Assay Legal. Yeah? So also it has to be a memorable name, something people will remember, not a really long one. If you want international clients, not a very difficult one in Swahili, but you could have a Swahili one, but not difficult. And make clear that you are lawyers. You need to have a distinct name. So before you pick your name, Google search for the name internationally. Because you could be, as you know, we're lawyers, we do intellectual property, you could be infringing other people's IP. So Google search and make sure that other people don't have the name and other people don't have the domain name. Yeah? You also don't want to be passing off. So, for example, I can't call myself METL Advocates because otherwise I'm stealing the goodwill of METL, right? I'm passing off. Now, really important, the name should be associated with what the clients want and what will be attractive to clients. It should build a picture, okay? Do not call yourself happy lawyers. Nobody wants a happy lawyer. A happy lawyer means a sad client, sometimes. Don't be happy lawyers, jolly lawyers, hello lawyers. It sounds like a Chinese restaurant. Hello lawyers. Are you going to go to hello lawyers? No. There's a firm called Law Bridge. That's quite nice. You're bridging the law, right? That's a nice name. There are some good examples of names in Tanzania. Rex Advocates is a brilliant name. Why? Why Rex? What does Rex mean? Do we know what Rex means? Rex and Regina. Rex is Latin for king. That's why you see a crown. They're leading advocates, that's fine. Stallion. Have you heard of stallion? What's a stallion? A stallion is a huge winning racehorse, right? You're winning, the firm's winning, it's huge. Bowman's is a good name, Mason's is a good name, because Bowman's is not the name of one person. It was before, it was Bowman, something, 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 something. They cut it down to one name. But they're old firms. CRB is a good name. FK Law Chambers is a good name, because then you're associating with people, but it's a brand on itself, right? There's no other FK. EMA is a good name, although it goes down from the partners' names. They didn't want to call them every single partner's name, they just went for EMA, and no one can follow up from that. So pick a good name, number one. Number two, know, and this comes to picking the name as well, but in building your brand, know what are your unique selling points, USPs. What is special about you? What's special about you? Anything special about you? Why should I come to you and not her? You embrace technology. You're one of the few people here who's got a laptop on their table, right? It says I'm interconnected, I'm embracing technology. It means I'm efficient. I'm going to beat the next guy who doesn't have one. Other unique selling points could be your specialization, could be the type of clients you've worked for, could be numerous things in your CV. Right, the fact that you're a woman could be a unique selling point against men. But what are also your principles? We talked a lot about values and ethics. Clients appreciate ethical lawyers, right? Particularly we're bound in confidentiality, lack of conflicts of interests. People don't want bent briefs. Also know whether or not you're having a team. I would always suggest, even if you're starting by yourself, to find another partner and start off. Because then, you have an institution and not a sole practitioner, which means if you get sick or anything else happens, your brand is maintained. Then to protect your brand, you've got this wonderful brand, right? So you have the brand, you need a logo. Now we saw the logo of Apple, and you recognized it. Do you recognize these three logos here? The tick is what? Nike, well done. Didn't even have to see it. The red with the white? Coca-Cola, it says it, it's cheating. And the M, do you know the M? Oh, I heard an answer here, but that's cheating. Anyone know the M here? McDonald's. There's no McDonald's in Tanzania, so how do we know what McDonald's is? But it's a brand, it's an international brand. Like KFC now, we recognize the Colonel's face. You see the Colonel's face is KFC. Have a good logo. So I got my logo designed, I'm having a temporary logo for this law school work. And my cousin works in a design place, and she did it for me for like $30. Cost $30 to do a logo. It's not very expensive, and it looks brilliant. You don't want to design your own logo. There are many graphic designers you can go to. I can give you plenty of names of people. Have a domain name. So you should have a website. If you are setting up, you should and must have a website. Again, there are so many cheap people who can do websites that look good. You need to get the content though, and they're not expensive. You can get a website developed for under $100, just developing. But most importantly, you reserve the domain name. So you know what a domain name is? Put your hand up if you know what a domain name is. No? Okay. So domain name is, LST, Law School of Tanzania.co.uk. That's the domain name, the web address that you go to. That is then put into, it's an IP address, but it's then put into words. So you have the top level domain name like .co.tz or .gov in Tanzania, if you're government, and then you have that name that goes before. So if I want to call my firm Chair Legal, I would make sure that I reserve the domain name first before I even incorporate or register the business. I reserve the domain name Chair Legal. So it'll be chairlegal.co.tz. It's very important because otherwise people will look for you and not find you, and it's cheap to do. To hold a domain name, you can reserve it for $1 on GoDaddy. GoDaddy, it's literally called GoDaddy. And then after a year, you pay $99 a year. But it's cheap, it's not expensive. And then, once you have a domain name, you can have that email address. Nobody wants to give legal work at gmail.com. Have you ever noticed, who's got a Gmail account? Many people? I know you've got Gmail, you people in this room, come on. Put your hand up if you've got a Gmail account. Be proud of it, I have too. But nobody wants to send legal advice to gmail.com. No client wants that because client wants confidentiality. Have you ever noticed, I noticed one day I book a plane ticket and then the day of my flying, Gmail tells me my flight is in 3 hours because Gmail reads my emails. Do you know that? Right? So no client, when they see gmail.com or hotmail.com or yahoo.com, nobody wants that. No one's going to give you work if they're serious. And the people who are serious have got the money to pay you. If they're not serious, they might just pay you to certify something. And please remember this. Today, in the last 4 years, the government has helped wakilis a lot by requiring for your passport, you have to go to Wakili to get it stamped. And documents have to be certified. Right? There's a lot of certification today. That's not staying, that's going. Trust me. Countries want to be ranked for ease of doing business. And when you have to go to Wakili and get something stamped, that's not easy. Right? So most leading economies don't have lawyers stamping everything. In fact, I was talking to somebody at my bank, I'm at ABSA Bank, and they were saying there's a guy upstairs at ABSA, he's just put his office there in this particular place, because when you go and open a bank account, you need a Wakili letter, he charges $50 a letter. That's not sustainable business. Sustainable business is getting the clients who will pay you hourly rates, and who will pay you to do transactions. And for that, you need to look professional, so you need to have your email address at chairlegal.com. So if you've got the domain name, you can automatically put that through Google. There's a way of doing it. So you're using Gmail, but your address turns out as at chairlegal.com. There's a way of doing this, and it's cheap and it's easy. So that's the next point. Business cards. How many of you got business cards here today? I got my business cards. I know you've got your business cards. Business cards. Very good guy in the back. We said yesterday that one of the most important things when you're specializing or you're making your brand is actually being known by other wakili. If you don't have your business card here today, I'm very disappointed. But you need to make those business cards to build your brand, and you need to get them out there, okay? Have that lovely logo, have your business card, and then you're building up the brand, you look professional. And then institutionalize. So if you're producing something from Chair Legal, all the law firms do this, by the way. This is not Sabrina making it up. All of the law firms, the big law firms, have a firm style. So when you're working in Word, you know Microsoft Word, you have a firm style. So for example, I will use Arial size 11, for example, or Calibri size 10. And you have a style of formatting. So when you're writing an opinion, some firms, top level, they do 1 as a heading. And then the next subheading is 1.1. And the next subheading is 1.1.1. And then the next subheading is A. And the next subheading is B. Going in that way, so that your work is easy to read. So that's having a firm style. And every document you produce should be in your firm style. So when I pick up a document, I know this is from your law firm, right? And your other lawyers in the firm should be using the same style. You become an institution. You become a brand. And clients really appreciate this because they get used to your style. You should also have template documents, and we'll talk more about those in a minute. but including template memos, template agreements, template engagement letters. Engagement letters are really important. I know we talked about making money. When you start your engagement, always have an engagement letter with your clients to make sure that they pay. And also to cover your own risk. When you go and you buy something from many big companies, you will see, I should talk into this, right? You will see that they have terms and conditions. As lawyers, we also need to protect ourselves from liability. We need terms and conditions. So have a standard form engagement letter. If you want examples, I can send you some. So part of building your brand is you looking professional. So I said I'm definitely hiring these two. They look very professional today. For you and your team. At Bowman's, we used to joke that we had Bowman's Blue because it's the colour of the firm. You also need a colour of the firm. It's very useful in your firm style. Have a website, as we said. In your website, make sure you have a description of the team if you have a team, or if you don't have a team, say managing partner and yourself. And examples of the work you've done, and we'll talk about that in a minute. You can have a look at the law firm websites, the other law firm websites, to get ideas on what you should have. And as I said, you can get a website done for $100. When you do a website, you can also make it Google ready. You know, Google has these calculations it makes. So if I search lawyer Tanzania, certain firms will come up, or law firm Tanzania. You know how they do that? They manipulate Google. There is a way of doing it. It's not because more people hit them, it's because they've manipulated it. So there is a way of using algorithms to do that. I don't know how to do that, but when I find it out, I'll tell you. Okay, so your website must be Google ready. If you can get the algorithms, do it. This is very important. Okay, put your hand up if you had a really good time at university. No one had a good time at university, stop lying. If these were medical students, you'd put your hand up. I had such a good time at university. And all those pictures were on my Facebook, but now they're gone. You will not see the good time I had at university. Be really careful with your brand and social media, because there are some pictures that go out there. This also includes TikTok. Who uses TikTok? No one watches TikTok? You're all lying. Instagram? Stop lying. Instagram, come on. I am actually not on TikTok or Snapchat or Instagram now on purpose. But you can be on it, but just be careful what you put on it, because we will find those pictures in 5 years. Yeah? Okay. So, you also need to have prepared, as I said, an engagement letter, etc. Now, office, this is a big problem. Your office, when you're starting up and you're brand managing, is so important. Because if a client actually sees you, if a client really sees you, they want to see you in a good-looking office to show this is a top lawyer, right? But if you've got no money, how do you do that? It's ridiculous. But let me tell you, and most of my clients are international, I have not seen a client, well, probably in a year, I might have a physical meeting with the client themselves, only if there's a regulator problem, but otherwise maybe once a year, maybe I'll never meet the client in person. So I probably don't need an office, but I have an office. But for you, when you're starting up, you can get instructions remotely, but what you can do is use these co-working spaces. Have you heard about these co-working spaces? Like Seed Space. Have you heard of Seed Space? So it's, you know, Tanzania Park? So just down the road, on Ali Hassan Winyi, Bagamoyo Road, Tanzania Park is kind of near to the Barrack building. But for example, there they have co-working spaces. You can use the registered office there for $45 a month, and you can have your own office there for $100 a month, which means you can use their boardrooms, etc., etc. But there used to be ESCB. There are many companies like this that will allow you to use their boardrooms and have a small office at a very cheap cost. Or what some advocates do is they come together. I'm trying to remember the name of the firm. I think it was Law Associates. It was 4 advocates who just kind of came together to share chambers. So they share costs of everything, but they keep their business separately. Yeah, that's another thing that you could do. But office space is important, parking is important, making it look good is important. Also really important now, because because after Corona, the office is virtual anyway for most people. A lot of people across the world are now cutting down on office space. When you are on Teams, are you on Teams, Microsoft Teams? Who's on Microsoft Teams? Very good. Who's on Zoom? Get yourself accounts with your new email address on Zoom and Teams, because most meetings now are taking place on these online platforms. And when you have those accounts, put on a background. Nobody wants to see your cat, although I have a very cute 2 cats and puppies now as well. But nobody wants to see my puppies in the background, or my kids when I'm on a call for work, because it doesn't look professional. So when you're on Zoom, there's a special setting you can put in. Good, you're doing better, although I still think you're looking at Tanzania. I got a call the other day from a client who's looking at Tanzania, and they looked at my LinkedIn, and they saw on my LinkedIn that I'm a lawyer in Tanzania, the UK, and Zanzibar. When you search, so when you know in LinkedIn you have like one line after your name, right? So if I just said partner at Bowman's or partner here, people might not know I'm a lawyer. So I particularly put lawyer Tanzania, Zanzibar, and I'm also English qualified. So people will approach you on LinkedIn. Also, when you're on LinkedIn, you can get people to recommend you. Get your friend to recommend you. But say, you know, you're great at M&A, you're great in employment. Those recommendations that you get on LinkedIn are important. Also be active on, if you want to do business, for example. So if, for example, you want to do M&A, mergers and acquisitions, join one of the private equity groups that you can join on LinkedIn. Look at what other lawyers and members of groups following. And when you go into, then you follow those groups, you understand more about that particular area of the market anyway, and then people see you on the groups. Your LinkedIn, there's one lawyer who's really annoying, by the way, here, who's an expat, who every week sends this little picture of himself on a boat or on safari, living the life in Tanzania. It makes Tanzania look like some holiday place. Every week, their post is so annoying, but he gets so much work. Because people think of him as living in Tanzania because they see all these lovely, lovely, lovely posts. And there is one thing you should know. There are many, many leading lawyers in terms of the biggest law firms, practices, making really good money, who are not good lawyers. But they are good strategists and they are good businessmen. A perfect law firm includes good businessmen, good academic lawyers, good practical people with regulators. Right? People have made good practices because they're good at business development. So this is a really important phrase. Have you heard of the phrase rainmaker? Want to be a rainmaker? And rainmaker is someone who brings in the clients. In the UK, for example, where you have these 1,000 lawyers in one office, you will have some people lawyers who never do any legal work. But they're bringing in the clients. So there's like a senior partner, managing partner, another partner, and you're taken as a partner on the basis of the clients and the money you bring. So you have the partner bringing in the client, but then you have the senior associates, the more junior partners, etc. doing the work. So remember that, business development is huge. I'm talking about multi-millionaires. Okay, so LinkedIn really important. Honestly. Okay, so LinkedIn really important. Follow thought leaders and thought leadership. Remember that phrase. Post insightfully. If, for example, so last week I was ranked in Chambers, and all the other lawyers who are ranked in Chambers, they put a post, proud, thank you to my clients, I've been ranked in Chambers. If I've just finished a deal, so if you look at some of the firms, if they've just finished work for, say, a mine who's got a contract with the government, they'll do a post in LinkedIn. We advise this client on this deal. Have a look, they do it. Okay? So you can do the same thing. As long as your client gives you consent for it to be public knowledge. You've got to remember confidentiality as lawyers. There are also lots of other websites where you can find work, and other lawyers, we said, are a source of work. I think yesterday we already talked about going to conferences and events, trade groups and embassies. Take your business card. If, for example, there is a mining conference, there'll be loads of kind of wazungu who just come in the country, don't know what's going on. If there was a conference on FMCG, and most of them are free, you go. The minute they hear you're a lawyer, they'll be so excited, and they'll take your business card. and they'll want to talk to you. But as my colleague said, if you don't go out, you will never get the work. And you have to remember this as well, just a plug to the TLS in particular. We have a really bad Advocates Act. I'm sorry, right? But we do. Do you know if a non-lawyer can advise on a mirathi, on a probate? Can a non-lawyer advise on a probate? Who thinks yes? Who thinks no? If you're not a lawyer, you can't advise on a probate. You all think nothing. You don't want to venture. Okay. If you're an accountant, are you allowed to incorporate a company? Yes or no? If you're an accountant, can you incorporate a company? Yes, no? The answer is no, but they all do it. In the Advocates Act, there is only 3 things. It's a criminal offence to do. It's an offence to do if you're not an advocate. 1, incorporate a company or register a partnership. 2, conveyancing. 3, going to court. Anything else can be done by non-advocates. Now there's some advocates regulations that say it's illegal to give legal services, but they don't define legal services. So currently today, you can have competition. This, I think, was touched on by the previous speaker, but I think it's so important. If you don't take anything else away from today, take this. When building your brand, you have to maintain it. You can be good at BD, but you have to keep the client happy. These 4 things will keep the client happy. Number 1, responsiveness. People get so frustrated, and particularly maybe they get frustrated with Zanzibari lawyers, people are telling me, because they never answer their phone, and they don't reply to emails. It takes a long time, and maybe this lawyer keep timelines, the client will trust you, even if you take longer than, but they get the work done, right? Build that rapport. People cannot see what you're doing at your desk, so be responsive and communicate. Most important, be decisive. In giving legal advice, decisiveness means you cannot sit on the fence. Okay? If a client asks you a question, they do not want an essay. But the law says this, and then this case said that, and this case says that, and that case says that. We're not in school. The client wants to know, can I do this? Should I do this or not? You can say, on the basis of conclusion, this is legal or this is illegal. Right? You should do this, you should not do this. Don't make commercial decisions, but be commercial about the advice you're giving. So when I do a memo, I normally have a conclusion at the top, 2 lines, only 2 lines. And then I put all the crap with all the provisos. As lawyers, we're scared. Someone's going to sue us if we don't mention X. So if you feel you need to put everything down, do it down the bottom, then the client can read the conclusion. In business, and we're in business, time is money. And the client just wants a 2-line response most of the time. The next one, quality, obviously important. Commerciality, you've already talked about. You have to understand what the client's goal is. And having those 2 lines is part of commerciality. And timeliness, do not miss deadlines. If you miss deadlines, you will lose trust. And we all do it. Okay, so that's part of keeping your repeat customer. So this I actually got online today, which I thought was quite good. This is a summary of the things you need to do to build your business, but you can see the slides. In a kind of rotational business building once you've done the brand. Now the next point is your clients, in order to engage you, they want to know you've got experience in the relevant area. So this is a problem we said yesterday of chicken and egg. Which comes first? How do you get experience if you don't have experience? Right? How do you get a client to do a mining job if you don't have experience? So we talked a bit about this yesterday, doing internships. Also, the other thing you can do, look at the slides I sent around yesterday for specialization, but start work with basic work in the industry. So for example, you don't know mining law, you've got no experience of negotiating with the government, but you could do some company secretarial work or employment work. So if you've done employment work, you can show, look, I can do for mine, I can do your employment work, right? Because then you have the experience of working for a mine, even though it's not the mining work. Also, one thing to do, when you pitch, do it with other people who have got the experience. So for example, you take 4 lawyers together, one is good at employment, one is good at corporate, one is good at mining, and then you can build your CV through that. So you need to build a firm profile. I don't really have time to talk about this now because I've been told I should finish, but I can tell you about it individually. I put in links to legal directories. If you're starting small, you won't be ready for legal directories. But I've put the links there. These are in, we talked about them yesterday. International directories. In every country, they rank the lawyers. So if I'm a lawyer in Sweden and I want a lawyer in Tanzania, the first thing I will do is go to these legal directories, nowhere else. And I'll see which are the best ranked firms and who are the best ranked lawyers. Because this is an independent barometer of how good the law firms are. So this is where you should be aiming to get to finally, so that when the lawyer in Sweden, the lawyer in America, the lawyer in Kenya, the lawyer in any other country wants to find a Tanzanian lawyer, they'll find you there. And here are some examples. Okay, so panels and bidding. Every 1 year or every 2 years, banks, insurance companies, and other large institutions, as well as parastatals, they have a tender opening on their panels. So what they do, they don't want to work with this law firm for this little bit, control people. They want trusted advisors. So they have a panel where they have a spot for 3 law firms, maybe even just 1 law firm. And that bank, for example, there's one bank that only uses 1 law firm. That bank will use you then for the next 2 years. And you have a contract. Now that is procurement that comes from the bank side. Okay? Normally, the banks are looking for these panels from October to January every year. So you'll see the adverts in the newspapers to try and get on their panels. RFP, you'll hear about, is a request for proposal. On a tender. You know what a tender is? A bid, a tender. Not to be confused with tender Mr. Geely, who was supposed to be presenting yesterday. But a tender for procurement. And the government, when it needs to buy anything, it has to go through a public procurement process that requires a special process where the parastatal or the regulator says, I'm requesting a proposal for legal services. Please say if you are eligible. So the first round of qualification. Then once the law firm then goes and sends all their documents, answers the questions, and then you have a request for proposal. And then the law firm puts in a proposal, how much will it charge, etc., etc. So there's government procurement, there's also, however, these panel procurements, and there's also project procurement. So, on the standard gauge railway, on the EACOP, they all have to put out requests for proposal. It's something that comes from the construction business anyway, airports, etc. So you can find these requests for proposals. They normally ask you to show you've got good compliance, so you have to attach your certificate of incorporation if the law firm's a company, or registration documents as a partnership, your TIN certificate, tax clearance certificate, etc. Then they want to see your experience, your program plan for them, your pricing, etc. I think I'm over time, but I've got so many other slides, so I think this has to be a different presentation. Unless you want me to continue? Are you tired? Tired? Continue? I can't understand at all. Some people are saying whatever. So should I hold it there, and then we can always have the rest of it another day? Because I think we've gone over time, right? Yeah? But there's some really good slides here, so hopefully we can discuss it another day.
You have ended the presentation, so you can welcome. If there's any question, there's a tendency of having few questions for English presentations. I don't know.
Okay, who's setting up a law firm? Over there? Have you got any questions on the setup of your law firm? Do you all get business easily? What are you struggling with? Oh, question, yay!
Yes, questions.
Madam Sabrina, this is not a question. I think we'd like to get your contact.
Okay, yeah, you can have my contact details, absolutely. We can also have another session on this bidding, this point. I think even TLS generally, I think the lawyers need some training on these panel and RFPs, because it's how we make good money, normally. So yeah, they can disseminate my email address. I'll give it to you. Yeah, my number.
Okay. Any other question?
Someone asked me a hard question. One hard question. Otherwise, I feel like I'm not working for it.
For sure. Yesterday, Madam Sabrina's presentation, after the presentation, no one asked any question. So for today, please, let's do justice to Madam Sabrina. Ask any genuine question so that she responds to the same. Any question?
Did I talk too fast?
Okay.
Hey, question.
Maja. I don't shout. Wait for mic.
Hello, Sabrina.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good, thanks. My question is on the location of the law firm. Do you think that the location of the law firm hinders the kind of people you get for work, the clients? And what would you advise on location?
That is such a good question. So the location of the law firm also hinders your budgets, right? I don't think there's anything wrong with having an office in town if town is cheaper. I think if you're going to have an office in Sinza, there's just ridiculous traffic, right? A lot of firms, the higher end firms are moving to Masaki. Masasani is cheaper, but people are still in town. If you have a firm in Kariako, you know you're only going to get very, very local clients. Unless you're going to get Azam, for example. Azam's head office being in Kariako. Yeah? But then you would target those clients. For me, I think it does make a difference where your office is in terms of being able to park, etc. But all of these, so ideally, somewhere along Bagamoyo Road is good, or just off Bagamoyo Road, but not somewhere that's so hard for the client to reach, or somewhere that is like, so I live in Masasani, and there's that Mandazi Street that you go through from one side to the other. If my office was on Mandazi Street, nobody's going to take me seriously, right? So it's got to be, if I'm looking for international clients or larger end clients. But that's why I'm suggesting these shared office spaces, because they are on Bagamoyo Road, they're in Masaki, they're in town, the offices look really nice, and they're really cheap. And you only have to go there when you want a meeting or if you want to be there, because really we can work from home today. But yeah, going somewhere inaccessible is going to make it hard to get walk-in business or to keep business when they want to come to your offices. I've got a deal closing next week actually, and my client doesn't want to go to the offices of the law firm who's on the other side because he just doesn't like those offices. They find them really inaccessible. Oh, another question. Thank you, ladies.
There's a hand here and there. Maybe I can start here.
Yeah.
There's another question here, so please let's collect them both.
Mwenyekiti, tunaanza huko, tunaanza huko. Okay. All right.
Okay, I want to ask as a participant. So I've come across this challenge in co-working because I tried different models and they kind of like did not work. The first one was a couple of friends who are through my firm. Now, how do I call them? They are not my employees. I don't want them to be my employees, God forbid, because then I have to do this APL and stuff like that. I don't want to be with them. So when we are co-sharing, you know, like they have their own space, they do their own thing, they just use the company, basically the company name.
Oh, they're using the company name?
It's actually the company name, you see,
okay.
so that they can go ahead and do their own stuff. They even have their own offices and everything. But it's like a branch of some sort.
Yeah, so that's much more difficult, yes, because that's affecting your brand directly. So when I was talking about co-sharing, I was talking more having a chambers, like a building, where you all share together. So you share the cost of a receptionist, you share the cost of the rent, you share the cost of the car parking, etc. But really, it's really hard, and there's a whole other session on that. How do you choose the people to go into business with you? Because a lot of the time, and I've heard this time and time again, businesses fail because of the partner that you have with you. So I think it's actually often easier to have two sole practitioners sharing chambers at first before you launch into a partnership. The problem is if you share the name, they can injure your brand, and your brand is diluted if they're not in the same place as you are. Does that answer your question?
Yes, it answers. Now the second part is when you're starting out, for those who are starting out, these are young lawyers, and you have talked about co-sharing a space maybe at Tanzania Park, where you can find co-sharing space. Now, my question is, maybe it might also help them. Do they allow you to use their documentation to go for maybe taxation clearance and stuff like that? Because then you need
no. So for
it's not good for starting. Maybe if you already started.
No. Yeah, you can use their. No, sorry. Yeah. To go for the registered office, you can use their office space for the registered office. So if you set up a business today and you register for VAT, TRA want to come and see. So yeah, so you give that address and the TRA can go and watch. What these co-sharing places are is they're small cubicles. You can either have a cubicle for yourself all the time, or just a hotspot place. You can go to any, but you also get boardrooms, and you get a receptionist, and you get breakout areas, and there are restaurants there, and they look very nice. And they'll give you the registered office address. So even me, I had that same question. I was incorporating a company. Should I use my home address, or should I use this co-sharing address? And the good thing is, obviously we know what is important about a registered office. Why do we care about a registered office? Because you can get sued and served. So it's important to have an address where you yourself can get served and your law firm is served and there is somebody there all the time, right? If your client's being sued.
Okay.
There's a lady here? Yes.
I have a question. You spoke about these meetings that happens around October to January, where big companies...
Put the panels out, yeah.
Yeah. So my question is, let's say we're young lawyers and we just opened a law firm. How are those big companies going to trust us and give us those big tenders while there are big law firms like IMA and Stallion? So what should we do as young lawyers to be able to get those tenders and compete with those big firms, because they also need like, what have you done? And let's say it's a new firm and you haven't done any work, but you want to start there. Is it possible for a young firm to get those tenders? Or
So that's also covered in the slide. So the point is, what you've done, if you personally, the firm hasn't done the work, many new law firms are new. So for example, if you took Bowman's as an example, it started in 2017. It came with old lawyers coming to start a new firm, yeah? So you inherit the CV of your lawyers, right? So if you personally have had experience working for another bank, for example, when in your internship or as an associate somewhere else, you put that experience down. And you deal with the CVs of the various lawyers rather than the profile, and then you build it. So even other firms, they sometimes put the experience and put an asterisk. Experience before joining X firm, but you can say in your profile, because it's on the CVs, you can direct you to the CVs. But you're right, it's hard. But actually, you'll find in some cases, particularly banks are and some of the smaller banks. There are many small banks in Tanzania. They're very cost conscious, and they would rather have someone who's really accessible, for example, to do their company secretarial. Some banks give tenders for company secretarial. They'd rather have somebody who is accessible, smaller fees, etc. to be there. So even new firms can win that work, inheriting that CV. Yeah? And also, meet the Tanzanian Bankers Association. If you want to look at banking, we talked about trade groups or insurance. TIRA is one of the nicest regulators ever. And we have Law Day, they have Insurance Day once a year. Go to Insurance Day, meet the people who are doing the procurement, and then you can also, it helps to get a foot in the door if they know who you are when you're bidding. Right? But it is possible. But look in the newspapers for those those appointments.
Okay.
Any other questions?
If there is no any question, then please, naomba tumpongeze presenter wetu Madam Sabrina.
And thank you for staying awake.
Thank you so much, Sabrina. Ninaomba waliopo nje wote tuingie, tunakaribia mmoja tu anaweza akaichukua akaletea hapa mbele, taipokea kwa heshima na taadhima.